Welcome, dear listeners, to the spectral vortex of our scary stories. I'm your host, your ferryman into the realm of the unsettling, the uncanny, the unknown. Tonight, we voyage beyond the veil of everyday reality, plunging into the abyss, where the mundane is swallowed by shadows and the echoes of the drowned resonate. Wrap your fingers tighter around your blanket. Let the flicker of your bedside lamp be your lone beacon, for we're about to dive into the drowning depths. The cold steel of her office chair did little to ease Dr. Amelia Hartley's unease as she sifted through the morning's pile of correspondence. Sandwiched between mundane invoices and scientific journals was an envelope, its aged parchment distinctly out of place. Inside, an invitation, embossed in gold, offered an alluring venture into the unknown, the drowning depths. From the confines of her cozy study, she couldn't help but let her imagination roam to the undulating expanse of the open sea, under which lay the chasm she'd only ever dared to dream of. Outside, a storm was brewing, the treetops danced, seemingly caught in a tempestuous ballet with the fierce wind. The faint scent of petrichor wafting in through the partially open window did nothing to quell the storm brewing within her. An ambitious oceanographer, Amelia was no stranger to the ocean's capricious nature. Her heart echoed the rhythm of the sea, sinking with the tantalizing unknown that the depths promised. Her fingers traced the contours of the embossed invitation. The whispers of old seafarers echoed in her ears, an abyss of lore and mystery, a phantom pressure that tested the mettle of the mightiest submarines, a place so feared, even seasoned sailors dared not utter its name. From her bookshelf, she retrieved an ancient maritime chart, a relic from her grandfather, filled with cryptic notations. Her benefactor's cryptic coordinates fell right into the heart of an uncharted oceanic void, labeled only with an ominous question mark. The weight of generations of seafaring blood stirred within her. This was an opportunity she could not afford to pass up. Yet it was the inexplicable, the eerie tales spun by drunken sailors, the spectral visions, the drowned ghosts, that thrilled her. A scientist at heart, Amelia thrived in unraveling the unknown, untying the knot of mysteries the ocean tossed at her. And the drowning depths were the ultimate mystery. As Amelia placed the call to assemble her skilled team, the chime of the brass ship bell in her study served as a fitting backdrop. A flurry of names and faces raced through her mind, each a stalwart in their field, each as unafraid of the crushing depth and consuming darkness as she was. The first call was to Captain Marcus Flint, a grizzled old sailor whose eyes held 1,000-yard stare, testament to a lifetime spent battling the tumultuous sea. Next, she dialed Dr. Lena Torres, an engineer whose creations had survived the toughest marine environments. Then, a promising marine biologist, Jasper Collins, whose fascination with deep-sea life matched her own. As she finished the last call, the wind howled outside, beating against her window like a spectral sailor seeking entry. But instead of fear, a thrilling anticipation coursed through Amelia's veins. The pull of the drowning depths was potent. The sea was calling her once again, luring her with the promise of an adventure that held the intoxicating cocktail of wonder and fear, of glory and terror, of the known and the unknown. As the first drops of the storm's deluge pelted her window, mimicking the sound of distant ocean waves crashing against a stalwart vessel, Amelia realized that the voyage to the drowning depths had already begun, right there in the confines of her study. Little did she know, this was merely the first ripple of a tidal wave that would change her life forever. On the weather-worn docks of Gray Harbor, the vessel eager awaited her crew. A tangible buzz of excitement filled the air, merging with the smell of salt and fresh paint. Seagulls squawked overhead, their cries swallowed by the expansive sky, their white forms contrasting starkly against the canvas of cobalt blue. Dr. Amelia Hartley stood at the helm, her gloved hand resting on the cold metal of the ship's wheel, her eyes focused on the horizon. A balmy wind, heavy with brine, tugged at her curls, and she felt the sun, a radiant orb suspended amidst cotton candy clouds, warm her weather-beaten face. The first to join her was Captain Marcus Flint. His salt and pepper hair was a testament to his years at sea, and his hands bore the indelible marks of countless storms weathered. His gruff voice echoed across the deck. All set, Dr. Hartley. Just waiting for the others, Marcus, she responded, her gaze still locked on the distant line where the azure of the sea melted into the sky. One by one, her assembled team arrived. Dr. Lena Torres, with her toolbox clanging against her thigh, squinted against the sun's glare. Young Jasper Collins lugged his suitcases on board with the vigor of a man driven by insatiable curiosity. Once they were underway, the Equor cut through the ocean's surface, leaving behind the familiarity of land. The ship was their refuge, their fortress against the might of the open sea. The rhythm of the waves against the hull, the taste of brine on their lips, the gentle rocking of the ship became their reality. Days turned into nights and back again. Their journey was interspersed with moments of tranquility and bursts of action. But as they ventured further from the coastline, the ship's equipment started acting up. The compass needle would spin erratically, the sonar would flash with inexplicable blips, and radios would crackle with static. One such night, as Amelia studied the flickering screens, a chilling realization washed over her. The ship's equipment wasn't malfunctioning, it was reacting to the drowning depths. The abyss was making its presence known. A peculiar wave pattern, unlike any Amelia had ever encountered, added to the mystery. The water swelled and dipped rhythmically, as if breathing. This strange phenomenon seemed to beckon them, a siren's call luring them towards the enigma that was the drowning depths. Around the dinner table, the crew discussed the day's observations. The depths seem to have a pulse of their own, don't they? Jasper mused, rolling a pea back and forth on his plate. You might be onto something, Collins, responded Dr. Torres, her engineer's mind visibly spinning. Even Flint, usually unshakable, agreed, his eyes a touch more distant. Aye, the seas never moved quite like this before. Amelia listened, her heart thumping in sync with the pulse of the depths. The familiar trepidation returned, but alongside it was the thrill of the unknown, the excitement of uncharted waters. As the rest of the crew retired, she stayed behind, gazing out at the ever-darkening sea under the silver glow of the moon. She felt it then, the vastness of their undertaking, the lure of the abyss. The drowning depths waited for them, a world of darkness beneath the world of light, ready to unveil its secrets. The morrow's dawn basked the Equor in a breathtaking palette of orange and crimson hues. Amelia stood on the deck, watching the mesmerizing dance of dawn-kissed waves, feeling the cold spray of salt water on her face. This was the day they would plunge into the drowning depths. The sonar beeped, indicating they were directly above the abyss. The calm before the storm was haunting. No lapping of waves, no cries of distant gulls, only the Equor's gentle bobbing in an eerily still ocean. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, awaiting the plunge. Together, they hauled the submersible from the ship's hold. Named Charybdis after the deadly whirlpool from ancient mythology, this vessel was their key to the underworld. Its sleek, metallic body glinted under the sun, armed with state-of-the-art technology. Dr. Torres, its creator, was understandably proud, her eyes shimmering with anticipation as she patted the submersible's side. Amelia, alongside Dr. Torres and Jasper Collins, were to descend into the abyss. Flint would monitor them from the ship, his steady voice their guiding light through the impenetrable darkness beneath. As they bid their temporary goodbyes and descended into Charybdis, Amelia felt the familiar squeeze of fear. But it was a fear she had learned to respect, a fear that heightened her senses, preparing her for the journey ahead. The submersible hummed to life, a reassuring purr in the stark silence. As they sealed the hatch and disengaged from the Equor, the world outside transformed. From the soft light of day, they transitioned into the fathomless dark. A flick of a switch bathed their surroundings in the artificial light from Charybdis, revealing an alien landscape of towering undersea mountains and trench valleys. The descent was slow as they marveled at the marine life that adapted to the harsh realities of the deep sea. Creatures of unimaginable shapes and colors, glowing eerily in the inky void, swam past their portholes. Each sighting, each shudder of the submersible hull increased their anticipation. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life, Flint's gruff voice breaking through. You're almost there, team. Ready for the real adventure. As ready as we can be, Amelia replied, her hand clenching the edge of her seat as they approached the edge of the chasm. Just then, they felt it. A sudden drop in temperature, an unexpected jolt. The radio filled with static, their connection with Flint severed momentarily. A phantom pressure wrapped around the submersible, pushing and pulling in a bizarre rhythm. They were here, the drowning depths. Staring out into the abyss, Amelia couldn't help but be awestruck. Before them, an endless void yawned, an otherworldly panorama that no mortal eyes had ever beheld. But even in that moment of profound fascination, Amelia could feel it, an ominous presence lurking in the dark, watching, waiting, and beckoning them further into its lair. Suspended in the marine night, Charybdis became an island of light in a sea of eternal darkness. Amelia couldn't tear her eyes away from the panoramic viewport. the abyss beyond a gaping maw in the undersea landscape. Pressure levels are holding, announced Dr. Torres, her eyes glued to the array of screens, monitoring their environment. Her voice echoed oddly in the metallic confines of the submersible, a stark contrast to the muted whispers of the deep. Jasper, the youngest among them, managed a shaky nod, his wide eyes reflecting the awe-inspiring scene outside. He clutched a small notebook, his hand shaking as he attempted to sketch the ethereal scenery. Amelia clicked the radio on, attempting to break through the static. "Flint," she called out, her voice steady despite the fear creeping at the edges of her resolve. After an agonizing moment of silence, Flint's voice crackled through the speakers. "I read you, Amelia. Proceed with caution." They ventured deeper, their progress marked by the changing topography outside and the subtle pressure shifts within Charybdis. They found strange formations of rocks, covered in bioluminescent organisms, glowing like spectral torches on an ancient, drowned road. Suddenly, the submersible's lights flickered, casting dancing shadows within the tiny cabin. An icy shiver ran down Amelia's spine. The shadows morphed into fluid shapes outside the viewport, creating a spectacle that left them breathless. Glowing apparitions seemed to float past them, their ghostly lights weaving an underwater ballet. They had the vague forms of humans, distorted and stretched thin by the surrounding darkness. Their movements were fluid, twirling and floating in a haunting dance to a silent tune. They're beautiful," Jasper whispered, his eyes wide with childlike wonder. His pen was poised over the notebook, but he seemed to have forgotten its purpose. Dr. Torres, ever the rational mind, broke the mesmerizing trance. "Bioluminescent organisms, perhaps. A survival adaptation to the extreme environment," she mused, her eyes never leaving the eerie spectacle outside. But Amelia wasn't so sure. A sense of foreboding filled her as she watched the glowing figures. Their shapes were too familiar, their movements too purposeful. They seemed to be beckoning them deeper into the abyss. And as she watched, her heart matched the rhythm of their spectral dance, echoing the pulse of the drowning depths. Lost in the ghostly serenade of the drowned, they pressed further into the abyss. But with each passing moment, the abyss seemed to close in on them, the haunting spectacle outside matching the growing unease within. And, as the first of the apparitions faded into the darkness, a chilling reality began to take shape. They were not alone in the drowning depths. Hours turned into a timeless fog, the depths of the ocean warping their sense of the day-night cycle. Charybdis continued to dive deeper, surrounded by shadows that stretched and moved with an uncanny semblance of life. They remained in silence, each lost in their thoughts, their hearts echoing the submersible's steady thrum. The sonar broke its monotonous rhythm, emitting a sharp, prolonged beep. Jasper's eyes widened, his fingers flying over the controls as he studied the readings. "Something massive is ahead of us," he reported, his voice trembling. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the monitor. An enormous silhouette loomed on the sonar screen, a shape that defied all expectations. It was colossal, bigger than any sea creature known to man, yet undeniably organic. Its shape was blurry, but one thing was clear: it was alive, and it was aware of their presence. Suddenly, the radio sparked to life, a garble of static and noise. Then, from the chaos of sounds, a voice emerged. It was faint, distant, like a whisper carried over miles of stormy sea. It was neither male nor female, but a mixture of both, flowing and merging into a single harmonic tone. "Gone, gone," it echoed, sending shivers down their spines. Dr. Torres turned to Amelia, her face pale under the submersible's glow. Was that the radio? Amelia swallowed hard, her fingers tightening on the radio's switch. She pressed it down, her voice steady despite her thundering heartbeat. "Repeat last transmission," she ordered. Silence filled the submersible, broken only by their own breaths, and the soft hum of the vessel. And then the voice returned, the ghostly whispers swirling around them like frigid sea mist. "Drowned in darkness." The hairs on the back of Amelia's neck stood on end. Her mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Was it a prank? Or had they truly heard the voice of the entity haunting the drowning depths? "Amelia," Jasper's shaky voice pulled her from her thoughts. He pointed towards the viewport. Their lights illuminated an expanse of twisted, otherworldly structures. It looked like a drowned city, its haunting, skeletal remnants a testament to a forgotten civilization. But the sight that truly seized their hearts was what resided at the city's center. It was a gigantic creature, its form shifting and swirling in the dark. Its glowing eyes bore into them, its silent message echoing in the abyssal void. Welcome to my world. As they stared at the entity, a chilling realization dawned on them. They were not merely explorers of the drowning depths. They were guests, called forth by the chilling whispers from the void. They were entwined in an ancient, underwater narrative, and the next chapters were yet to unfold. The drowned city sprawled before them, its labyrinthine layout eerily reminiscent of civilizations long lost to human history. They watched as their lights danced off the smooth, organic shapes of the buildings, highlighting the grotesque sculptures that adorned the cityscape. Every turn revealed yet another facet of this strange civilization, once powerful, now lost to the relentless grip of the sea. The creature at the city center remained still, a sentinel of darkness observing their every move. Its form was fluid, a roiling mass of shadow and light, its eyes glowing with an almost sentient curiosity. It was neither aggressive nor welcoming, its silent presence a haunting reminder of their intrusion into this alien world. With Flint's voice in her ear, guiding her through the city's serpentine network, Amelia maneuvered Charybdis with expert precision. Despite the fear that knotted her stomach, she felt an insatiable desire to know more, to unravel the enigma that was the drowning depths. They drifted towards the central monolith, an eerie tower that pulsed with a rhythm echoing the ocean's own heartbeat. The structure was adorned with intricate carvings, spirals intermingled with foreign symbols, their purpose as mysterious as their creators. At the base of the monolith, ghostly luminescence seeped from cracks and crevices, casting an otherworldly glow over the surrounding ruins. Charybdis came to a stop, hovering just outside the pulsating monolith. Amelia felt the rhythm of the tower thrumming in her veins, an ethereal pulse that resonated with the depths of her soul. Where at the heart of the city, she breathed, unable to tear her eyes away from the radiant spectacle. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life. The strange, harmonious voice filled the cabin, its words washing over them like waves breaking against a deserted shore. "We are the drowned," it murmured, the sound as chilling as the abyss itself. Dr. Torres was the first to recover, her scientific curiosity breaking through her initial shock. "An intelligent entity," she muttered, her eyes wide with wonder. This changes everything we know about life on Earth." Jasper looked at Amelia, his eyes reflecting a wild mix of terror and awe. "What do we do now, Amelia?" Amelia took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the radio switch. As she prepared to respond, she could only hope that their decision wouldn't seal their fate. After all, they were in the heart of the abyss, surrounded by the unknown, their lives hanging in the balance, and their journey was far from over. With the voice still reverberating within the steel confines of Charybdis, Amelia pressed the radio switch. Her voice echoed into the abyssal void, a lonely human sound against the vast, mysterious depths. We come in peace," she began, hoping the ancient entity could understand her intent. The abyss was silent, save for the unending murmur of the ocean against the submersible's hull. Minutes stretched out, and Amelia felt a cold knot of dread in her stomach. Had they pushed too far, ventured too deep into the unknowable? Finally, a response came, a sigh of the sea. "Peace." "What is peace?" The voice was a haunting chorus, a melding of tones that was somehow melancholic and threatening. The curiosity and despair intertwined in a way that made their skin crawl. In that chilling exchange, they realized something. They were not speaking to a single entity, but to a chorus of the lost. "We are the drowned, but you are still adrift," the voice continued, its tone resounding with the echoes of countless lost souls. A cold shiver swept through the crew as they digested the cryptic message. What did it mean to be adrift? Were they referring to their intrusion into the depths? Or something more existential, a reference to the human condition itself? As they pondered the meaning, Amelia felt a strange compulsion. The pulsating monolith before them, radiating an otherworldly light, seemed to beckon her, its rhythm syncing with the pounding of her heart. She activated the submersible's mechanical arm, extending it towards the monolith. As the arm touched the structure, a shockwave of energy rippled through Charybdis, throwing the crew from their seats. The lights flickered, and for a moment, everything was submerged in darkness. Then, as suddenly as it had started, it ceased. The lights returned, and they found themselves facing the monolith, which now pulsed with an intensified glow. In the eerie silence that followed, the radio came alive again, the chorus of voices whispering, "You." Hear our echoes now. See? And then the world shifted. Their surroundings blurred, replaced by images that seared into their minds. Grand cities with towering spires, a civilization advanced beyond their wildest dreams. Then a catastrophe. A wall of water obliterating everything, dragging the grandeur into the depths, reducing the magnificent civilization to ruins and its people to mere echoes in the abyss. As the visions faded, they found themselves back in the submersible, their senses overwhelmed. The world of the drowned had shared its secret, its ancient tragedy, a warning, or perhaps a plea. And as they looked out into the abyss, into the heart of the drowned city, they knew their journey had only just begun. They were adrift, indeed, and their anchor was buried deep within the echoes of the drowned. Still reeling from the mind-altering vision, the crew of the Charybdis found their resolve shaken but not broken. Whatever remnants of fear clung to them, they pushed aside, emboldened by the breathtaking knowledge that an ancient, advanced civilization lay hidden in the depths. They were explorers, not just of the sea, but of history itself. Amelia took a deep breath, steadying her trembling hands on the controls. The haunting glow of the monolith, still pulsating with that otherworldly energy, felt less like a threat and more like a beacon of understanding. It was a bridge, connecting them to the lost world of the drowned. What now? Dr. Torres asked, her eyes reflecting the glow outside. We need proof, Amelia said. Proof of what we've seen, of what's down here. They agreed to gather artifacts from the surrounding cityscape. With delicate precision, they used Charybdis' arm to collect items, a piece of intricate metalwork, a shard of stone with symbols etched into it, a luminous pearl-like object that throbbed gently with the rhythm of the monolith. As they gathered these relics of a lost civilization, the chorus of voices never interfered. Instead, there was a sense of silent acquiescence, as if the drowned were watching, guiding them in their exploration. In the cold, dark heart of the sea, an eerie harmony settled between the living and the drowned. Their collection growing, Amelia found herself drawn towards a particular structure, a grand, dome-like edifice standing apart from the rest. As they drew closer, they noticed the door, a large circular opening framed by spiraling carvings, similar to those on the monolith. An instinctual curiosity coursed through Amelia. We're going in, she announced. Charybdis drifted towards the entrance, her lights piercing the shadows within. The drowned were silent, their ghostly whispers absent from the radio. The crew held their breath, the submersible inching into the unknown as the dome swallowed them whole. The darkness broke, revealing a colossal room filled with strange, monolithic structures, their purpose unclear. At the far end of the room stood a platform adorned with an intricate contraption, gleaming in the lights of the submersible. As they drew closer, the contraption began to hum, vibrating with a familiar rhythm. It was in tune with the monolith, with the pulse of the drowned city itself. Look at that, Jasper breathed, his eyes locked onto the humming contraption. It's beautiful. Amelia nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. Here, deep in the heart of the abyss, they had found something monumental. What that was, they were yet to discover, but every cell in her body was alive with the thrill of discovery. The shadows in the dome moved, undulated like living things. Amelia swallowed hard, glancing at her crew. Their journey had taken a turn into uncharted waters, and yet they were resolute. There was still so much to uncover, so much to learn from the echoes of the drowned. Hovering before the humming contraption, they contemplated their next move. Amelia studied the device, its intricate carvings and mysterious resonance that hummed in perfect sync with the drowned city. She reached out with the mechanical arm of the Charybdis, gently brushing the surface of the contraption. Its hum grew louder, more urgent, as though responding to their presence. What's happening? Dr. Torres asked, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and concern. Harmonic resonance, Jasper mused aloud. It's interacting with the vibrations of the Charybdis. Amelia retracted the mechanical arm, but the humming didn't subside. Instead, the entire structure of the dome began to resonate, casting eerie ripples through the surrounding water. Then, with a suddenness that jolted them all, the room was bathed in a luminescent blue glow, emanating from the contraption. The drowned. We share, the chorus of voices whispered through the radio, their tone hushed, reverential. Within this ethereal glow, ghostly figures began to materialize. The crew watched in silent fascination as these apparitions moved with an otherworldly grace, their movements mirroring the daily activities of a society long lost to time. They walked through streets, entered buildings, even interacted with one another in a spectral replay of their ancient lives. Their speech was indiscernible, but their expressions and actions painted a picture of a civilization at its peak, a society thriving in unity, wisdom, and harmony. It was as if they were being granted a private viewing into an ethereal museum, one where the exhibits were echoes of an epoch drowned in the tides of time. Meanwhile, the glow from the contraption intensified, engulfing Charybdis in its radiance. It was warm, soothing, and Amelia could feel a strange connection to it, a sense of understanding that transcended language and species. The voices of the drowned came again, clearer this time. You understand our world. And indeed, Amelia did. She saw their unity, their progress, and ultimately, their tragic end. She saw a mirror to her own world, a harrowing reflection of a possible future. The thought was terrifying but also enlightening. If they could learn from the drowned, perhaps they could change the course of their own civilization. Fueled by this newfound resolve, Amelia turned to her crew, their faces illuminated by the unearthly blue glow. We need to bring this knowledge to the surface, she said. We have a responsibility to share what we've learned here. The others nodded, knowing the task ahead wouldn't be easy. However, they were not just explorers anymore. They were messengers. Bearing the echoes of the drowned, they prepared for their ascent, a deep-sea odyssey back to the world of the living. The last chapter of their undersea journey began with a sense of urgency. The hull of the Charybdis creaked under the pressure, her lights sweeping over the drowned city one last time, capturing the ethereal glow of the contraption and the ghostly procession of its long-lost citizens. Prepare for ascent, Amelia commanded, her voice steady despite the thrum of anticipation pulsating through her veins. Each member of the crew locked into their positions, their hands dancing over buttons and levers with practiced ease. The submarine's ascent motors whirred into life, sending a shudder through the vessel. As they began their slow journey upwards, the drowned city faded into the obscurity of the depths, the haunting luminescence replaced by the relentless darkness of the abyss. The once threatening pressure eased as they ascended, but the silence of the deep was replaced by the frenetic chatter of marine life. The sonar pinged rhythmically, a beacon guiding them home. It was a stark contrast to the mystical hum of the drowned city, a firm tether back to reality. Within the confined space of the Charybdis, the crew felt a collective sense of loss and exhilaration. They were leaving behind a piece of history, a piece of another world, but they were carrying with them knowledge of immeasurable value. The drowned had entrusted them with their echo, a plea from the past to protect the future. As the dark abyss surrendered to the twilight zone, shafts of sunlight pierced the gloom, casting dancing shards of illumination through the water. The submarine continued its climb, moving through swirling schools of luminescent jellyfish, and past the occasional curious shark. Their ethereal underwater world was fading, replaced by the familiar tones and textures of their own realm. The final stage of the ascent felt like a rebirth, the world above welcoming them back with open arms. As they breached the surface, the cold bite of the ocean air filled their lungs, a sharp contrast to the stifled atmosphere within the Charybdis. Seagulls circled above, their calls a jarring reminder of the world they had left behind only days ago. They had done it. They had delved into the abyss, braved its terrors, and returned with a piece of history. As Amelia looked out at the horizon, the setting sun casting the sky in hues of orange and pink, she knew their journey was far from over. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter. The drowned city might be lost to the abyss, but its echoes would resonate through time, carried forward by the brave crew of the Charybdis. As they set a course for home, the whispered chorus of the drowned seemed to carry in the ocean wind, their voices a solemn reminder of the fragile balance between progress and the unforgiving might of nature. In the end, the sea did not claim them. Instead, it gifted them a message, a legacy from the depths. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Amelia understood one undeniable truth. They were no longer just explorers of the sea. They were guardians of its secrets, of its past, and potentially its future. Emerging from the abyss, we find ourselves blinking in the stark light of our everyday world, the echoes of the drowned still resonating in our ears. Was it all a dream, an apparition, or a haunting journey into a world swallowed by the sea? It's time for us to dock our spectral vessel back into the harbor of reality. For now, anyway. This has been another chilling episode of Our Scary Stories. I am your host, leaving you at the brink of reality. But remember, dear listeners, the depths are always waiting, calling, Until next time, when we cast off the ropes and set sail once more into the Sea of Shadows. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.